Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us at the MarketSite studio, we have Rand Taylor, CEO of FuelOx, to discuss some of the challenges that are associated with electric car and truck manufacturing mandates. It is great to have you with us, Rand. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the issues that could hinder broader adoption, more scale of the EV market?
Well, it's kind of like, where do you begin, because there are so many issues that are taking place. For instance, if you're looking at big trucks, just the battery size themselves is about 16,000 pounds. Now, if you're looking at a truck, an over-the-road truck, if they're hauling 50,000 pounds, and all of a sudden they have say 15,000 pounds of extra weight, it takes away from what they can carry, and also how far they go, and the costs are prohibitive as well, because the costs are much more. Okay. The other thing too is that here's the question: if you break down on the side of the road, how do you get a charge to get you back running? Okay. No one's really answered that question. As well as, where do you recharge along the route, and can the charges last long enough? A lot of guys, when they fill up and they go on the road, they're on there for like 2 or 3 days before they have to fill up again. And will charges handle that or not? No one seems to really know. Okay. But what it really gets to, and this is whether you're talking about trucks, heavy equipment, or just cars, it really gets down to the infrastructure. Okay. Is the infrastructure going to be there? And that's one of the big things that keeps people from buying these, I think, is that, hey, if I buy it and I go somewhere, do I have enough charge to get there? Let me give you 2 anecdotes that I've had recently. A friend of mine bought a Lightning, the Ford pickup truck, loves it, but he was in Florida and he lives in Connecticut. He said, there's no way I'm driving it up here. So he had it shipped up because he didn't have the time to stop and get it charged, 3 times on the way up here is what it would have taken. I also have another friend of mine who bought another sedan, a very expensive sedan it was a Tesla, right? And he was forced off the road across a curb. No bodily damage to the car whatsoever, but he scraped the battery, totaled the car. Okay. And
that's expensive to replace.
And he's not going back. Okay. Right. So these are some of the really big issues out there that are confronting people as the EV takes place. But the biggest issue is the infrastructure issue.
And not even that, but EVs are significantly more expensive than internal combustible engines. So if consumers can't afford them and they keep their cars and their trucks longer than they necessarily might have to, what does that mean for the manufacturers if they're not replacing their inventory?
Well, that's what's interesting too, is that anytime you have that situation, we had that situation kind of like that in the trucking industry in the 2008-2010 area, when they started putting diesel particulate filters to keep the smog from getting out, and they mandated everyone had to have it. Well, what you built was a kind of a black market situation where people were not getting rid of their trucks, and all they would do is replace anything broke on it. They kept replacing it because they didn't want to have to buy a new truck, because it was mandated that new trucks had to have it. Okay, this is what you're going to see, I think, with cars and everything else, as these mandates start to kick in, that the new vehicles all have to be electric or whatever. You're going to see people that are going to do the same thing. They're going to replace. I think the engine parts, the companies that make the parts are going to have just an absolutely fantastic time, because their business should go through the roof.
Are there other alternative forms of clean energy sources that could hinder the EV adoption narrative?
Oh, absolutely. And here's the thing about mandates. This is why I personally don't like mandates. I don't think mandates are really they put the goal out there to reach for so everyone gets better. Mandates are really picking the winners, is what they are. Rather than allowing putting some goals out there, some real goals, where their companies have to cut down their emissions by so much and improve whatever so much to make the benefit to the environment. But by doing mandates, you're really saying, okay, this is what we're going with, and this is what it's going to be. Meanwhile, they've chosen electric, but you have hydrogen products that are coming out that I believe are going to be very interesting. You have renewable diesel. They're making diesel out of products now that have almost no emission at all. So what do you do with your internal combustion engines, who are far more efficient running diesel or a renewable diesel, right? And much more power in it, which is the problem, right? And you can fill up anytime you want. The infrastructure's already there. So these are very interesting things that are all coming. They're coming right now, But meanwhile, the federal government seems like has picked out that the mandates should be for EV. You know, and I think what you're going to see is you're going to see some curveballs thrown here that no one's really expecting that are going to be very positive, actually.
Yeah.
Because I think the free market is positive.
And that was my question to you. What would be a better alternative is to let the market drive the process? Because I mean, think about it now. I mean, the SUVs are well over $100,000. Families that need them, you know, 2, 3, 4 kids, it's expensive. It's not. I mean, you can't just mandate people to go and get these vehicles if they're unaffordable.
Right. That's a huge issue. Absolutely, the cost, whether it's cars, trucks, heavy equipment. For EV, it's much more expensive. Okay. But what's really interesting is that now you have EV clearly in the front row. Okay, has been given the front row position, and everything else is catching up to it. And it's going to be interesting how that plays out in the next. Well, since 35 is really the mandate year that California's put in place. Okay, so what we do at FuelOx is we're a stepping stone, because we provide a fuel additive called FuelOx with combustion catalyst that actually gets the fuel to combust more thoroughly, both gas and diesel, primarily heavy equipment. So you get about 5 or 10% better fuel efficiency, but we cut the emissions down as much as 60, 70%. Okay, so we know we're headed towards a cleaner environment and cleaner, and rightfully so. That's really what we want to be. We want to be there, but we're going to help it happen. You know, by with our fuel additives and our Infinity Lubes products. Our Infinity Lubes are all 100% plant-based lubricants that outperform by hundreds of percent the products that are out there now. It's really a revolutionary product.
Yeah.
But that's what we're all about. We're all about helping. We know we're going there. We know that the next step is much cleaner emissions, everything else. But we're going to help it happen. And we're happy to do anything we can to make that.
It'll be interesting to see how the market does drive this. Appreciate the insight, Rand. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.